7:35, and we have the call from our, well, I didn't mean to do that. Let's fade this up. And our governor, Asa Hutchinson, sir, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Great to be with you.
Oh, I appreciate it, Governor, and I know you're on a tight schedule today. We want to talk a little bit, and Sheriff Montgomery is here as well with Bob Zdora. I want to talk about the program for the prisons, and I know overcrowding has been an issue for a lot of our county jails here in Arkansas. I'm going to let Sheriff Montgomery and Bob Zdora and you talk about this and what we as the citizens can do to support you in this.
Well, fantastic. Thanks for the opportunity. And I listened to the intro about conservative values, and there's probably nothing more conservative than making sure government does its responsibility in terms of public safety. So it's really the number one responsibility of the institution of government. And in Arkansas, I inherited really a prison overcrowding challenge where we didn't have enough beds in prison to support the flow that was coming from our different counties, resulting in a backlog of about 2,600 in our county jails that we didn't have room to take in our prisons. And we've been trying to tackle that. During the legislative session, we transferred enough money to build about 500 new beds in prison, and we instituted a plan also to increase our parole supervision with new parole officers, new authority, so that we can hold those coming out of prison on parole more accountable. And so we're putting all of this in place. It takes time, and what I announced this week was $7.2 million additional money that I'm requesting of discretionary funds to put into about 200 more beds. And this is really part of my initiative that started last March and April when the legislature was in session. So this is a phase of that. But this 200 additional beds, it'll take us about 16 months to put online. And during that time, we hope to put the other aspects of our plan in place to increase public safety, accountability, alternative sentencing courts, and hopefully that'll make a difference for our counties. I'd love to hear Sheriff Montgomery and Bob's perspective. What's the current status in the Baxter County, and how's the flow and the backup going?
Well, our backup, of course, is we're like a lot of the other counties. I think roughly between 35 and 40% of our inmates are currently waiting to be transferred to the Department of Corrections. And we've talked about this, Governor, in our discussions you and I've had, and I think the big issue that we're having is repeat offenders. Those are the folks that seem to cost us the most in many, many ways for us financially and just burden on society. So I know you're committed to try to help come up with solutions on the repeat offenders, and again, I want to applaud you, not just because you're on the radio, because I've said this many times in the last few months. You have really, really made a commitment to the sheriffs across the state to try to help deal with this problem. And there's not a magic pill. There's not one single answer that's going to fix this, but all of us working together, I think we're making progress.
Well, that's my intent. We've got to continue to work together. And when you talk about the ex-offenders, the multiple offenders, and those that are repeat, going back to jail, prison time and time again, that is the challenge. You're right on target. And what we've got to do is to separate those that are coming out of prison that really want to have a second chance, get a job, have an opportunity, identify those and help them. And then there's another category that historically has been about 40 to 50% that say we're going to continue the path of crime. And those are the ones we've got to crack down on with greater parole supervision, accountability, and send them back whenever they continue that path. So that's the objective, and you all have been great partners in trying to achieve that.
And it's Bob Zdora, Your Honor. You were talking about adding more beds, and we have Calico Rock prison, which is here up in Melbourne, which is very close to here, and it's an economic engine for this area as well, as far as the employees that work there. We have a number of people that live here and work there. Is that on the list to be expanded, do you know?
No, these 200 beds, $7.2 million is part of the Esther unit expansion, which is in South Arkansas. So that does not target Calico Rock. I think there has been some aspects that will help Calico Rock, but I have to look at that more carefully. And Calico Rock has been a very good institution for us. There's good workers up, up there, and a big part of our system. So I know they'll continue to be. One thing also, if I might throw in,
sure,
is initiative that's coming up. When we talk about ex-offenders coming out of prison, we've always given them $100 and a bus ticket and say good luck to you. And so we are coming online in the next 6 months about 500 reentry beds that will allow them. For example, right now we have in prison a number of inmates who have qualified for parole, but they have no place to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the sheriff was talking about that earlier today.
And the parole board is not going to release them unless there's a plan as to what they're going to do. And so the objective is to have some reentry beds in various parts of the state so that those that are eligible for parole can have a place to go. They can have some assistance in trying to readjust, get a job, and reenter society. But we can't do that completely as a state, and so that's the reason we're having a faith-based summit coming up in August, trying to enlist the help of our churches, religious organizations, and saying, join with us in helping us to do more than what the state can do.
Now, when is that taking place, Governor?
That'll be taking place in Little Rock, and the invitations have gone out, I think, to 5,000 churches across the state.
Okay.
And we expect to have a good crowd there, and they're already doing a lot. There's so many ministries in prison and helping people, but we want to be able to expand that, and there's two focuses. One is those looking for a second chance, but also we're focusing on children, those that are in need of foster care, and we don't have enough foster beds in our state. That's not even a problem money can solve, because money's not the issue. It's a matter of volunteers willing to give of themselves and help our children. So those two areas we're going to concentrate on in terms of our ex-offenders. That's part of it, and we can't do it alone. We got to enlist the help of our churches and our faith-based organizations.
And Governor, while you're on the phone, we're very proud of our sheriff being the Arkansas Sheriff's Association president.
Well, that's an important organization, and John has been an incredible leader within the organization, but a voice for public safety, a voice for addressing these problems that we're talking about today. So congratulations, John. Good luck to you on that.
Well, I appreciate it. Should be a boring year, huh?
Governor, I want to point out I had Corporal Doug Smallon from Arkansas Game and Fish, and at one point the stats for Arkansas Game and Fish said that Lake Norfolk was the #1 point of arrest and accidents in past years, and now it has dropped out of the top 25, I believe is what the corporal had reported. Well,
and I'll just touch on that real quick. We went back, we were having major accidents where our recovery dive team was, unfortunately, had numerous drownings every year, and so working with the Corps of Engineers and the Game and Fish, we made a conscious effort to crack down on the alcohol, boating while intoxicated on the lakes. First couple of years, lots of arrests, even had some folks not happy about it. But if you look at, I think the history has shown in the last 6, 7 years, 8 years, knock on wood, we rarely have a drowning, and I can't remember the last serious boating accident. So it's made a difference.
Sure does. Sure does.
Well, that's an example of changing behavior. Enforcement encouraged people to act differently.
Right.
And that's really what we're trying to do in a broader context of our parole supervision, is holding people accountable, changing behavior. And it's not an experiment. It's been tried before, but we've just never tried it in Arkansas. So hopefully we can be as successful as you've been, Sheriff.
Well, didn't the program that your predecessor had started, where they released all these people, but they didn't have any way to follow up with them, and these guys are just wandering around, girls are wandering around aimlessly with no programs, no real safety net or supervision, which is what they need probably more than anything else, to keep an eye on them while they're out on supervision, parole, whatever it may be, and that's what really needs to be addressed as well.
Well, and and there's no secret, I was a strong opponent of Act 570, but I've said this over and over. The only chance it had to work was they had to have more parole and probation officers. You cannot have 150 to 170 clients per parole officer and expect them to be able to monitor them. And so, Governor, I appreciate the fact that you're committed to hiring additional parole and probation officers, because I think Bob's right. It's got to be a part of it.
Well, that's a perfect place to continue the discussion, but that's typical of government. We say this is what needs to be done under Act 570, perhaps increase parole, but also add parole officers. And so what happened was we increased parole opportunities, but we didn't do the second half of the bargain, and that left us in the problem we're in.
Right.
Listen, thank you, Dale, for the opportunity to be
Governor,
with you.
appreciate it. I know you're on a tight schedule this morning. We're going to let you go, and feel free to call or stop by whenever you're in and look us up. We'll go have dinner.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
to be with
Governor.
you.
Grace Hutchinson. Thank you, sir. We'll be right back. Time for a break. 7:50.
Well, that's why we have commercials, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, goodness. Bob Zdora is here at mic number 2. Our Sheriff, John Montgomery, and also the newly elected president of the Arkansas Sheriff's Association is here as well at mic number 4.
That's why he's got 2 microphones. It's the sheriff and the newly elected Arkansas Sheriff's Association president.
Thank you. And I will say, I'm very honored not only to be that, but I will say the local news media, KTLO and Baxter Bolton, both did a very, very nice job in the story about that election. And so, again, I'm honored, and it's just a great honor for me personally. And we do have a lot of challenges coming up in the next year. One of the things that I've talked about is, we really haven't touched on is the mentally ill. That is a big problem across the state, and we did send a delegation. The Sheriff's Association sent a delegation, to Texas, because they've got they've started a program down there, sort of as a pilot program that has turned out to be a huge success, and so we're looking at them very closely to try to bring some of those best practices back and possibly start that in this state, because what happens is you go out, you find someone that's got a mental issue, and of course I could cite 100 examples, but someone that's got an issue and the officer realizes they've got a mental issue, but so they get arrested on a disorderly charge or some sort of misdemeanor charge, and they're put in jail and they're evaluated, and depending on how the evaluation goes, they may be released, or they may be sent away for 2 or 3 days. We go pick them back up and go back in jail.
They're not really a criminal.
And we've not solved the problem.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's just a matter of getting them on medication or back on their medication that's been prescribed. But we really haven't solved anything. So now they go back and they sit in jail and they can't get out, and they go in front of the judge, and then they get out and they get in trouble again because we still haven't solved the issue. So basically what Texas has done, Austin has done, is they said, hey, let's do these stabilization units, so that the officer takes them straight to that stabilization unit. They evaluate them, keep them there for a few days, get them on medication if that's what it needs, and decide those that need longer term care. And so now all of a sudden, instead of them being arrested and clogging up our jail system, they shouldn't be there anyway, it helps them. So I heard a report from one of the sheriffs that attended that, and he's very impressed, and we're looking strongly at that as well.
Oh, that'd be a great way to do it, because we back in the day, we would run into somebody like that on the street, but the facilities were different then, and the society's view of the mentally challenged was different then. and we would lock them up for disorderly, but you'd write on the arrest report, you just write on there, recommend see Dr. Keller, who was the guy who would decide whether you would go to jail or you would go to one of the treatment facilities. They didn't have much treatment then. They were just more warehousing. But that was where they cared for those with mental issues. And to be able to do that and to keep them out of the system, because now that cuts down on people injuring themselves in jail, attempted suicides, any of the number of things that come from people that are not really criminals. They have issues, and they need help with those issues. And law enforcement, unfortunately, they don't call an ambulance for these people. They call the police. And the police end up having to deal with it, and that is the root of so many issues that come up for the police.
Absolutely. And so, again, if we can, one of the things, when the governor's on the phone, all these programs that we're talking about, again, there's not a magic pill. It's not like say, hey, let's do this and we've solved this. But if you can take, and if this program helps 5 or 10% of the folks from repeating, and this other program helps another 5 or 10% repeating, and the mentally ill, if we can now, that takes another 5 or 10% out of the,
sure.
Well, all of a sudden you're up to 15, 20, 25%, and you've made a real difference.
Right.
And so
small bites.
You
cannot knock everything off at one time.
Absolutely. And I think we need, and of course that's one of the frustrations the sheriffs have had. What we very much believe we've got to have a long-term solution. In other words, we can't just, although we need some relief now, we know you can't just keep building prison after prison after prison.
Right.
But we do need some long-term, but we need some relief now. And so that's one of the things that's been good, I'll say, about the task force that the governor's created, is because it's dealing with both halves of that issue, long-term, but also, just like he's talking about, we need some short-term solutions now. Because you think about it, I've got a 100-bed facility, and we consistently now run over 100 folks in our bed.
Oh, yeah.
In our jail.
And in Marion County, we have to build a new jail in Marion County. We have no choice, because the one facility we have is one dilapidated and not.
Well, they're getting ready to close it down.
Yeah, they are.
And so, and I'll tell you, the thing that they talk about is not just a matter of closing it down. Oh, we'll take them somewhere else. I can't hold them.
You can't. No,
Boone County can't.
Nobody.
Hold them. Everybody's full,
yeah.
and the travel cost and bringing them back for court and all the many things, the medical problems. You're right.
And those are the things that really are going to have to come out during the discussion on this, as far as how things are going to be done. In fact, Tuesday at the Marion County courthouse, there's going to be a meeting on the jail and the funding. And if you're interested in that over in Marion County, stop by.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Sheriff Montgomery on short notice. Of course, we got the governor on this morning. And Bob Zdora, your phone number for real estate.
870-405-0793. Give my honey a call.
Bob and Linda Zdora, the Z-Team, Century 21 Lemac Real Estate. That ends the weekend for us. See you on Monday.
See you next month.